Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Michael Noland here tonight with my long-promised video on, and my review as well, of Led Zeppelin IV. Now, I've always called this album Zoso. That's my preferred title. Some even know it as Four Symbols. Whatever you call this album, you are listening to, you are observing Led Zeppelin on steroids. As far as I'm concerned, this is Led Zeppelin at their very best. And they achieve a level on this album that truly elevates them to Olympian status as far as I'm concerned. I mean, what can I say? This isn't just an album. This is a story. This is a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay, so back to the album. We're gonna call it Led Zeppelin IV because most people call this album Led Zeppelin IV. So we'll do that for this video at least. All right, so I promised you a story, but first we have to take a look at the first couple of tracks, and then we can see where this album leads us. You know, for as forward-reaching as this album is, track 1, and track 2 for that matter, sounds like it comes right from either Led Zeppelin I or Led Zeppelin II. Both of their opening tracks are just as powerful as this song, Black Dog. From the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, rhythm of this song, as well as the sound of what can only be the very center of his cymbal being Mike. You hear that center bell sound just popping through the mix, don't you? And of course, with their usual studio chatter mixed in with the song, you would think with these two opening tracks, both Black Dog and Rock and Roll, that Led Zeppelin was going back to their roots. And in one way, that's exactly what they do on these two tracks. But who is this big-legged woman? More on her as this amazing tale unfolds around our ears and our eyes as we peruse these amazing lyrics. Next up, of course, Rock and Roll. We get this great intro from Bonzo with an almost rivalry between his ride cymbal and the snare. And the whole band just blends this wonderful tune together. But you know, it's Jimmy Page to the rescue musically with this song. We've heard him do this stuff before, but never quite like this. His peppering of the far left and the far right channel with his guitar almost snapping from the far left to the right, and then all of a sudden a pop in like from another dimension, a guitar riff that just puts this song on such a high level, you know you're listening to something you've never heard before. Of course, Led Zeppelin follows those two amazing tracks with another even more amazing, in my humble opinion. This is my favorite Led Zeppelin song out of their entire catalog, The Battle of Evermore. You know, my favorite Beatle track, if I have to admit, if I was forced to choose one, would be the magnificent Eleanor Rigby. There's something about that song, and the fact that so many people were involved in the writing of that song, I think it's just one majestic piece that really, truly identifies the Beatles at their very best. To me, The Battle of Evermore is Led Zeppelin's Eleanor Rigby. And you know, there's a thought. In the comments, let me know if you're a Beatle fan and a Led Zeppelin fan like me. What one majestic Beatles song would you compare to what one majestic Led Zeppelin song? I'm curious, please let me know. Here, Led Zeppelin manages to tell us the tale of a 3-book story in under 6 minutes. And they not only do it, they do it extremely well. All right, so 3 songs up to the plate, 3 home runs hit right out of the park. How could they possibly match the level of these first 3 songs? Well, they managed to do so, folks, and they do it with a beautiful chord progression provided by Jimmy Page and some flute work by John Paul Jones. Now, I know there's been some debate over the years as to whether this was a progression stolen from, was it Spirit? I've heard that piece of music. Yes, there are some similarities, but my response to that is you cannot trademark a chord progression. We would have run out of songs centuries ago if that was true. But whatever you think of the progression of this song has an identity all its own. Here we are introduced to the woman. You know, the big-legged woman. But just like Nowhere Man in John Lennon's song, isn't she a bit like you and me? And that's the whole point of this song. She's the us in us if we didn't look at ourselves honestly in a mirror. She is the us of us that would chase the easy, the popular, the instant cure. And with the marrying of certain lyrics on songs to come, we now know that her stairway lies, like ours, on the whispering wind of what is happening in our lives. You know, it's the next amazing song that ties together this mysterious woman, the woman that Robert Plant seems to explore further in songs following this one. Here is a perfect example of Robert Plant being a superior lyricist. Here, he is speaking to a woman who he possibly is unhappy with, but she is the one person he can talk to regarding his observations, the days that he has observed certain little oddities, and it's the metaphors that Robert uses on this song that you find sprinkled later and have already been sprinkled a few times in the songs preceding this one. This is where we see Robert Plant, a fully recognized man of the world. Here we see his lyrics directing us to free ourselves, to free our minds, to not listen to the morals of those who came, a generation who provided us with 2 world wars and at least 2 police actions that we did not ever want to repeat. And this song says it all. All right, so that's 5 songs up. It's 5-0 in the game, folks. All of them a home run. All right, surely there can't be another classic on this album. Sorry. Classic number 6, Up to Bat, and if there were runners on base, this song is a grand slam. Here we start seeing the first indications on how to identify this personage, this mysterious woman, smattered ever so lightly into our subconscious on this album. And here we see that the main personage of each and every preceding song, as well as the continued songs that we'll discuss, that this has been, a person's search for freedom all along. He's in a relationship that's at least uneven. He feels the call of a greater calling, and for whatever reason, she doesn't. It's here where he starts to free his mind. Now, we've already seen this character start to free his mind. Here he starts to identify things: the wind, water, red, rainbows, seas, forests, trees. These beckon to him, but not only beckon to him, but the woman can't or refuses to see what is so very important to his growth. And of course, the song magnificently ends with cries of anguish, absolutely nailed by, in my opinion, the greatest vocalist in rock and roll history. Now, the next track, Going to California, is really part 2 of this song. Here we see this mysterious individual freed. He's going to California. California being a metaphor, I guess, to Nirvana. Of course, the fact that this is part 2 is anchored by more lyrics supplying the same hints that we've already discussed. This is a story, folks. Here we see the beginning of the conclusion of our hero's journey. And of course, that leads to the final track, every bit as a classic as any other Led Zeppelin song ever recorded, and that's When the Levee Breaks. Here we see water again, but this time the water is exploding. Now you can take this song as a song about an actual disaster, some dirt farmer whose entire existence has been wiped out because of a horrible storm. But when you hear this song after you've heard everything else on this album, the levee breaking are all the barriers that were holding him back. Because after all, what happens to the character when the levee breaks? He is forced to leave his home. He is forced to go elsewhere. He has reached California or Nirvana, or at least a better way of living. To think that there's still critics out there that hold on to the premise that Robert Plant can't write, I don't know. Critics, for the most part, over my lifetime, have shown me nothing. They have, for the most part, not directed me in any good direction whatsoever. And with the exception of a few good writers from the late 60s, early 70s, I can make my own decisions about the music I listen to, and I can judge for myself what I prefer, just like you. But these idiots spend about 30 minutes listening to a 44-minute album, perusing over lyrics they couldn't understand because they don't have the words moon and June at the end of every other line. This album is a freaking masterpiece. It should be hanging in the Louvre. This album has no weak spots. There's not one track that is slightly under the others. And in deference to those who would maybe identify Stairway to Heaven as the big hit, that's only because that was what was played. That's what the DJs chose to play. They're no smarter than critics. And don't get me wrong, Stairway to Heaven's a fabulous song, but it's like my fourth favorite song on this album. The only thing I can say to so-called Led Zeppelin naysayers is you have never given them a good chance. You've never really listened to them. Wake your ears up, enjoy the sounds, and I personally recommend that if you haven't listened to too much Led Zeppelin, listen to this album and be educated.